Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Small Cap Discoveries conference call. Today on our call, we have Troy Griffiths, the CEO of Vigil Health Solutions. Vigil trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol VGL and on the OTC under symbol VIGLF. The company is trading at 27 cents with roughly 18 million shares outstanding, or about a $4.8 million market cap. I'd now like to hand it over to Paul Antriola.
Awesome. Thanks, Trev. Yeah, we have Troy Griffiths, like Trevor mentioned, with Vigil Health. This is a name that I've known for a while. I'm actually a shareholder. Yeah, Troy, welcome. We were due to have a call, you and me, and this will have to make up for it. So
Perfect.
Appreciate you joining us today, and would love you to. I understand you've got a presentation, so would love for you to start that and tell us all about Vigil.
Great. Thank you, Paul, and thanks, Trevor. I appreciate you guys inviting me to speak to the group. Let's just make sure. Hopefully, everyone can.
We can see it. Yes, we can.
And is it in presentation mode?
It certainly looks like it. Yeah.
Good deal.
No, it's not. It's not in full presentation mode.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There you go.
Let's just make sure. There we go. Good. All right.
There we go. Perfect.
So again, try not to bore you with a big slide deck, but wanted to give all of the participants a chance to learn a little more about Vigil. We're in the business of improving the quality of life for seniors with creative technology. We focus on the senior space, specifically senior living. We're public. Everyone has to say this, especially me. This is all about forward-looking statements and risks. I'm sure everyone's familiar with it, but have to put it up front. I want to really start with why Vigil. So what makes us different from others in our space and others that companies might be exposed to. We are really, I believe, industry experts, specifically with senior living and providing emergency call and resident monitoring solutions. We've been doing it for a good number of years. We're 22 plus now, providing technology into this space. So really know the area, and we're also got a really strong product line, and I'll talk more about that. Over 650 projects completed, so over 50,000 beds installed. And we're getting repeat business from some of our best corporate customers. So it means that we've got a good sort of steady stream. And I'll talk a little more about our revenues in terms of both the project revenues and then the recent thrust we've been on recurring. So this is just for people who maybe aren't as familiar with senior living. This is the landscape of the senior living space. Obviously busy. We play really at the sort of higher cost providers with the higher levels of care. But really a pretty big swath of this. So everything from the traditional nursing homes that people might be more familiar with, to assisted living, to dedicated memory care, to a combination of all those things under the continuing care retirement community banner. So there's really a whole slew of possible providers we sell to, and we've got solutions that really serve their needs and are very much a la carte. So if they want one or two of our solutions or breadth of them, they can have that. One of the things I know that sort of top of mind, especially when you're talking about older adults, especially older adults living in senior living, is COVID. So I thought, let's bring it front and center. Obviously, the disease is impacting seniors living in long-term care disproportionately to the rest of us out there. Some pretty tragic stories early in the pandemic. I feel like a lot of the providers got their hands around it better. And in fact, a lot of the cases you heard about, the stuff that made the news, would not have been our traditional customers. They were sort of on the outliers in terms of the level of care they're providing and the types of plant facilities they have. That said, there's over 7 million cases of COVID-19. I had to update this slide from a week or two ago. So it used to be 6 million in the US. So it's growing fast. We do expect that to impact our revenue recognition. Projects are still happening. I'd mentioned sort of before the call started that, I mean, definitely the US is open for business and there's projects moving, but there's no question that there's a chance for them to be slowed down. And we saw that happen sort of the tail end of Q4 and a little bit into Q1. But that said, serving seniors is an essential service. So we really had to pivot quick when that happened, because when the pandemic occurred, because we had to make sure that we could continue to ship product out to our existing customers and make sure we could support them and keep them operational. And we did a really good job of that, I think. We basically, within a matter of days, we were distributed largely virtually, except for a core team that still has been and still is delivering the physical equipment to sites. And ultimately, our technology helps keep residents safe, both in terms of COVID and just in general. And some of our new developments are going to continue to support that in an even bigger, more meaningful way. So, you know, COVID's not good, but I think we're in a position where we can take advantage of being there to support our customers. Specifically, there was a recent survey that was done, and about 87% of respondents are going to look to increase their technology budget for next year. They realize that they've been sort of underfunding technology, and they need it more now than ever. Of the categories they surveyed, we do 3 of them. So we're sort of well positioned to take advantage of that increased spending. So near term, there has been, even prior to the pandemic, a big part of our business is new construction. So we're sort of ultimately under the cycles of new construction, and there had been some overbuilding. So we benefited from that for a few years. And then this last sort of year, we've seen overbuilding, meaning there was a lack of construction and new projects. So that combined with the pandemic made Q4 not a good quarter, but we're starting to see things turn around now, even despite the pandemic. And so that's a good sign. And again, I think once we sort of see things continue to stabilize, there's some pent up demand there. That's where I sort of lead into my longer term. You know, in the next 20 years, we're going to see basically double the number of units required in senior living. And this is just in the US, fairly US centric when I'm talking about this. It's the biggest healthcare market and the biggest senior living market in the world right now. You know, the other factor is we've got a really important product for memory care for Alzheimer's, and that also is expected to double by 2050. So a lot of growth, some of it challenging for the world. And with that last bullet there, you know, 70% of people over 65 at some point are going to have to get some long-term care at some level. So there's real need. Who doesn't love an animated GIF? So this just shows that there is a lot of seniors coming, and it's really, we've been talking about this demographic, the silver tsunami, for ages, but it's really starting to hit now. And you can see over the next 30 years, again, it's going to be, especially with our increased longevity, we're going to start really seeing the need for more professional care be required. And then I just thought I'd sort of segue that into where are we installed. So you can see we really have a decent penetration of installs throughout the US, you know, into Canada to a degree, but obviously the market's a lot bigger in the US. Where there's major centers, that's where we see a lot of our customers building. And so we're up and down the West Coast, all through the Midwest and the Northeast. And then of course, we've actually seen a lot lately down in the Southeast. So continuing to grow there and starting to get some new states as we build out. We just got one in Vermont. And so there's still lots of opportunity to get out there. Paul, I figured you're going to have a lot of questions, so I'll just sort of truck on through this. And then if you really want me, you can wave your hand at me, but otherwise I'll make sure I cover all the salient points, and then we'll get into the questions.
You bet.
So this is at a core, we've got an enterprise platform that's an on-premise solution. It's a life safety system. It's got a whole bunch of components that we can a la carte, everything from wireless call to hardwired to our sophisticated resident monitoring system for people with Alzheimer's. So a whole selection of products, different levels of care and different types of communities. We'll a la carte these. They may expand their community and want to add them, or they may just desire to add them later. And that's the beauty of our solution. It really does scale well. And then in addition to that, we've been rolling out over the last couple of years now, a bunch of cloud applications. And this really speaks to our goal to grow our recurring revenue while providing great value to our customers. So we've got integrations to the Amazon Echo and the Google Home. We've got third-party API integration for a bunch of other products that are out there. We've got dashboards for our corporate customers. One of our sort of more popular cloud products is our mobile app. That's for iOS or Android devices, allowing staff to communicate with each other, but also get calls. And we've integrated with a third-party GPS product that allows us to track residents who leave a building and go for walks. I want to talk just about a few of our core products, some of the ones that maybe are a little more interesting or hopefully exciting to people. This is our memory care system. It's our flagship product. And basically we have sensors in the entry to the room and to the bathroom, and another motion detector in the middle of the room. And we use those sensors to correlate the movement of the residents without any tags or bracelets, and combine that with a bed occupancy sensor, optional incontinence sensor, and then finally a staff switch. And all of these basically collect real-time information on the resident And where someone deviates from expected behavior, that's when a silent message goes out to staff to check on them. So the beauty of this is they can go about their daily business without getting interrupted. They don't need somebody checking in on them every hour. But if they get outside of a safe behavior, if they're not safe to go to the bathroom on their own, the staff get notified. If they're a fall risk, the staff can get notified. If they're a wander risk, they'll get notified if they leave their room rather than waiting until they've actually left the building. So very powerful system, very configurable for different residents and the stages of memory care, and something that differentiates us in that no other competitors are doing anything really like this. Then we have a more traditional, but the next generation call system. So this is using our latest wireless as well as the ability to be hardwired. So it's an 802.15.4 technology, low power consumption, small form factor devices, really supports the full continuum of care. We put this technology in skilled nursing all the way through to assisted and independent living. It can go in small communities, but also really large campuses. Some of our communities our customers are so big, they call theirs villages, and they're literally thousands of residents live there. And the beauty is we've tried to build this so that it's an open architecture so we can continue to add products that we can do those follow-on sales to our existing customers. And these are just some examples of some of the devices that the wireless will support, everything from a mini pendant to a wearable band to fall monitoring and continence monitoring. And we ensure all calls are canceled at the source so residents are always safe. Do a more traditional, even more traditional nurse call system. And this is a good differentiator from several competitors in the space that don't have the ability to do a UL-1069 system. So for our either pure skilled nursing or CCRCs with skilled nursing, we are able again to do all levels of care. And that really means that we can go in and solve all their problems with regard to emergency call and resident monitoring. And this is sort of one of the final, in terms of products, to speak to that, we do a resident check-in. So this is for your pure independent living where your residents maybe will not, they can eat their meals in their units. They don't have to go out. There's no high levels of care, but they want to make sure they're safe. So we have both passive and active ways to get them checked on and make sure they're okay. So just a transition there into how do we sell the product. We're selling largely to the US market, North America in general. We focus on the levels of care I mentioned. Our sweet spot is continuing care retirement communities or corporate customers who have multiple levels of care, because one of our sort of key differentiators is that we have a full product offering that meets all levels of care. They're well served to the fact that we can have one platform to serve all their needs. We do like to target those national, regional, multi-site providers because we have such a compelling argument and because they tend to be the ones who are more stable, growing consistently, and value the additional technology that we provide. We've been doing this through a direct sales approach. Over the years, there are channels and we've looked at them, but really with you see below a 12-month sales cycle, it's really served us well to focus on, getting in there, spending the time and delivering the value proposition to the right decision makers. And we found that we're the best ones to do that. And I talked a bit about this, but basically I've got in territory salespeople. So we're sort of focused on some core areas where there's the most building and population, but able to service all through the US and Canada, and really try to design it so that as we grow, we can add more salespeople and sell divide the territories. And the marketing, so this is an interesting one. Again, when we were just starting the conversation today, we talked a little bit about the idea of trade shows and how with the pandemic things have changed. Really, marketing's here to support the sales efforts of direct sales. One of our big ways to get in front of customers, at least initially, was through trade shows. So we're sort of transitioning to the virtual trade show world, but we're also looking at new, more creative ways to get in front of customers. I'm very grateful that we've got a really good selection of existing customers that are doing good stuff that can both not only will continue to buy from us, but help us as a referral base into other opportunities. But the other thing we do is customer presentations. We work with customers to present at conferences and now virtual ones, and participate in buying guides, all sorts of things, doing outbound email campaigns, and then starting to push more on social. We've been doing it like everyone has for a while, but again, with everybody now working remotely at the corporate offices, even for our customers, while the buildings are still out and running, the decision makers largely have been work from home now. We're looking at new ways to try to get in front of them. This is just a classic slide of some of the customers the corporates we're working with, a variety of sizes, everyone from big continuing care retirement community chains to assisted living providers with multiple sites. But so these are the many sort of core corporate clients as well. I listed all the standalones. We have hundreds of those. And then for the company, we're 32 people, so a small company, largely based in BC, largely based in Victoria at the Vancouver Island Tech Park. We do have a team on our operations side in North Carolina that can go out and do go out to manage projects and help us on sort of the technical side of things. And then the 3 in US salespeople. So mentioned earlier, again, this was obviously a decision we'd made for a while. It's been very valuable to have these people in territory, but no more so now that the border's closed and there's so much going on. So I've been grateful for that. And they're all very long-term employees who've been doing a great job for us. And we've got a strong collaborative culture. It's what we're all about. I think it's a big part of why we were able to transition to the remote model so quickly and really seamlessly. So it's a fantastic team. I'll touch on a few of us. I don't necessarily need to talk about myself, but my CFO has been with us since the beginning. She's CPA, originally from Scotland, has a master's in economics as well. So extremely diligent, experienced, and helped take the company public. My VP operations also been since inception and really has been able to drive the operations side of the business. And it's streamlined so well now that we implement these things largely remotely. Even though we do have those 3 people in the US, we're really trying to minimize their travel and keep all our employees safe. And so we've been able to largely do a lot of the commissionings remotely. So that's helping keep our travel costs down and keep them safer. There is some variability in that, depending on the size. We're doing a 30-story high-rise in Phoenix right now, and that one's, you know, got all of our systems. And so that kind of project will need to actually go to. That said, again, Jackie's been instrumental in helping us sort of manage and navigate, making sure we're as efficient as possible and keeping our customers happy. And then Steve's the newcomer. He's only been with us 15 years. And he's really got a fantastic background in all sorts of disciplines in technology. He worked for True Position, which was the 911 locating that was a bulk of the cell companies used for finding people if they dialed 911. He worked for the Telescope in Hawaii. He's worked for circuit board manufacturers. So really a breadth of experience on the R&D side. And then our board of directors. So again, without getting into too much detail, Greg is our chairman. He's also a fairly large investor, all disclosed in our public documents. He was the CEO of ALI that got acquired by McKesson for $500 million a few years ago. And since then has been on the board of several technology companies, but he's been with us again since pre-McKesson times. So he's been a big supporter of the company and the management team. Ian's a fairly new member. He used to be the CFO of Norsat and is on the board of the Pender Fund. And Lindsay as well is fairly new in the last 3 years. And he was actually with Contigo, the CEO of Contigo, which got acquired by Vessel. So again, a good group of guys. I sort of rounded out, and yeah, they're adding value every time we meet and talk. Just high level on the financials. Again, everything's posted, as you guys know, on CDAR. But you can sort of see from this the waves that represent a construction cycles. And so overall, it's going up. But you can see that we've had a few down quarters previously. But the trend is starting to turn back up again. This one's important because this is what I've been focused on, like I said, for the last few years, is how can we grow our recurring revenue? And I put our recurring revenue into 3 buckets. One is the most traditional, which is software maintenance, and that's that blue bar at the bottom. And then the next one is the consumables that happen post-implementation. So things that get dropped in toilets, like pagers and wireless devices, or get smashed. So that again has been a growing and fairly consistent source of ongoing revenue. And then the new one, the little yellow bar at the top that's just starting to make an appearance, is our Vigil Mobile. So with all of those in there, and obviously I'm trying to grow that and the other cloud application revenue so that it's going to continue to stabilize as well as grow our revenue. So currently just a little south of 3 million annualized run rate in just the recurring revenue side. So, you know, it used to be the percentage of our total revenue has been growing. It used to be 40% the previous year, and it's up to almost 50% this year. So the more we can build that out, as well as growing our project revenue, the more it's going to stabilize and hopefully soften some of those dips in the valleys. And then just a few things we accomplished on the R&D side. Well, one thing we accomplished, and then that segues us into what we're working on, our big project right now. We completed a new version of our Vitality receiver. Bunch of new capabilities, smaller size, lower cost, a bunch of real benefits. But what that does is actually, it's the launching pad for our next generation real-time locating system. So what that means is we're developing a system that's going to have a whole bunch of receivers, multiple radios, including low energy Bluetooth, that are going to allow our communities to actively track residents. So they've not just in a memory care room, but throughout the building. They'll be able to, and how this might impact COVID is they're going to be able to potentially quarantine a resident who's been diagnosed with COVID. They can have areas that are off limits, maybe a COVID ward. They can they can do some contact tracing, see where staff have been with certain residents. And then there's, where this came from pre-COVID was, facilities often, want to find somebody. This way they can find both staff and residents just by looking on a Vigil virtual map. So it's going to give them a bunch of benefits sort of pre-COVID, and then a lot of power and use as we get in, sort of navigate this disease. And then just some final, I'm getting close to the end of just me talking, but the sales bookings for last quarter were a little bit above 1.2 million. We got a backlog of almost 4 million. Revenues again around 1.25. So we were able to get an adjusted EBITDA of 232,000 for the quarter. So fairly healthy. Gross margins in the 54%. We actually are happy with anything above 50 because we're a mix of hardware and software. And we have almost 3 million in cash. And I think in closing, just want to say we've got a broad suite of offerings for senior living and really strong technology solution for our customers. And that means, and I think our next coming offerings can be even more compelling. And that's also going to contribute to our recurring revenue. So, and finally, I've got a great team. And I know probably it sounds cliche and everyone talks about it, but we've got a fantastic group of long timers who've been contributing. They know the industry, they know technology in the industry. And so it makes us, I think, a great play for the future. That's all I have to say.
Perfect. Perfect. You did such a good job. All I kept doing was checking off all the questions I had. So, but I think I still have a few.
Good deal.
Let's talk about the product and more specifically the products and the direction you're going. So you are starting to launch more products that are a little bit more recurring revenue sort of style. But can you give us a broader sense of where you want to go? Is it more tracking? Is it more diagnostics? Just give us a sense of kind of what direction you want to take some of these products.
Yeah. So in the sort of nearer term, our big focus, our biggest push is going to be on that RTLS. So internal tracking of residents to give more meaningful data and keep them safer. So that's going to be the big push. And I think there's a lot of demand out there. And one of our keys is we believe we can sort of dovetail it with the existing infrastructure so we can come in at the right price point. Historically, there have been RTLS systems, but they're more for acute care, and they're just not priced for our market. And so we think we can deliver the right product at the right price.
Gotcha.
Longer term, we see integrations and sort of opportunities to work with companies that are in our space, as in senior living space and in technology, but not in the emergency call resident monitoring. So definitely keep your eyes out for how we can work with others to be the trusted supplier of technology and bring these sort of things in. And we've done that in cases with our GPS Smart Soul. We've done it with a Wander product. It's a tagging system. So we think we can do it with other stuff that's even maybe further afield. And that'll lead us to all sorts of relationships we take advantage of.
And obviously with COVID, you mentioned some of the sort of the challenges, but I mentioned there's also opportunities that have developed because of it. And are you getting customers coming to you with certain sort of requirements or things that they're hoping that you can fix that you're considering?
Yeah. So initially the big thing was they were just trying to get PPE and keep the residents safe. I mean, and basically locking the doors and keeping them safe. Since then, sort of coming out of it, that's where we're starting to hear the idea of being able to monitor the residents who might have it, and long term, whether it's that or the flu even, being able to better control that. That's really got them thinking about using technology. And they're talking about things like, how can we better implement our technology to be sure that what we're investing in today will have the long-term legs to ensure that we can add new features if we want. So they definitely want to see that product roadmap, our more strategic customers. And so the good news is we've been working especially with our key customers for a long time, and we're able to sort of paint that for them. They're still trying to get their head around it, though, if I'm being honest, Paul. They're, you know, how to do it and their costs are going up. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff happening in the U.S. in terms of the assisted living just found out they got some more funding from the U.S. So they're still navigating this crazy.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, a little bit more on sort of new products and R&D. You've got, I think you said, just shy of $3 million in cash. Are you well funded to develop any other new products?
Yeah, I mean, we've got cash, and we're continuing our cash has been growing, and we're sort of being conservative on the other expenses. And in fact, if we're being honest, one of our big expenses for the longest time was travel and trade shows, and that's gone down somewhat materially. So yeah, absolutely, investing in new product is something we're doing. I mean, having that sort of very small war chest is got some benefits, right? It allows us, if we want to leverage that into sort of new R&D initiatives. You know, we're also looking at getting funding for that because there's opportunities where we're really stretching. So we're trying to, you know, stretch our dollars everywhere we can, but we're also looking at other ways we can invest. So yeah, you know, nothing's off the table, and you know, our goal isn't to sit on that necessarily, but is to see how we can best lever that into some real benefit.
Yeah, I mean, are there any small M&A opportunities for you guys?
We're always looking. So that's one of the things, you know, absolutely, it's on my radar. We've not. You know, there's nothing disclosed, there's nothing planned per se, but I definitely, at every trade show, I was active and have been over the last year or so, been active in talking to people and see where there's an appetite and a good synergy, for lack of a better word. And since the trade shows have all but closed down, I've been reaching out to new people. And so, you know, nothing on the table today, but it's absolutely something I think, again, for those industries that are part of the senior living space, but not what we do, I think there could be some real benefits where we have either shared customers or each have our own customer set, and we can benefit from working together on that. So.
Perfect. Vigil Mobile. Tell us a little bit more about that. I really want to get a better understanding of what that does.
Sure. So basically, in the old days, the way a nurse call system would work, well, before a nurse call system, you would just yell from your senior living, and then you'd pull a string and a light and a buzzer would go off. And then we progressed back when we started, we had those pocket pagers. So the similars to the ones you'd see drug dealers using. That's what the care staff would carry, and it'd be local to the building. And that's still in use. We're still selling lots of those because they're durable and cheap and all those things. But in the last 2 years, especially in the last, say, 6 or 8 months, we've had a huge uptake at least in the number of licenses for Vigil Mobile, which is basically an app for staff to see what the active calls are. They can run some basic reports, and then they can communicate on an internal network between the staff. So it's really just seeing their calls. It's like having the Vigil system in their pocket for the key things they need. And the beauty of that is they're also doing, in a lot of cases, maybe charting and those kind of things are also moving to the handhelds. So we're tying in on being able to be on the same device. What I like about it is I'm selling it on a recurring revenue basis, and I'm not providing the devices. So it's all software as a service cost, and I'm not playing in the hardware game.
Wow, that's cool. How fast is that growing for you guys?
I would say in rough numbers, it's been growing at about sort of month over month, 20% or more. So big sort of growth, yeah, and it can be very lumpy, and the reason that's why I average it. Sure. We had one customer just buy 60 licenses. And when they buy them, what we've done is we've sort of rolled it into their software maintenance timing. So we bill quarterly, even though it's billed on a per user per month basis, or sorry, it's sort of sold on that basis. So that allows it sort of to slide right into their operating budgets.
Okay, cool. What's the average size of your projects?
Average deal size is about 70,000, and it can range from as low as for us about 30,000. To the biggest one we ever did was 750,000. Yeah, so there's a pretty broad range there.
And I mean, and you've got clients that have multiple sites. Maybe give us a lay of the land. Is there 3 companies that have hundreds of sites, or is there hundreds of companies that have 3 sites?
Yeah. There are There's a combination. There's a few bigger players that have hundreds of sites. They're not our core customer base. And then our corporate customers have anywhere from typically 10 to 50 sites. And so that's sort of our sweet spot. But I would call the market in terms of senior living providers fairly fragmented, with a few big players and then lots of regional players and doing that. I mean, our biggest customer, Ericsson, has one of the large, I think they're number 6 in the number of beds, but they've only got 17 properties. They're the one that calls their places villages. So.
Right. Okay. And I mean, is this a business where you've got a lot of sort of installed sites, and when you've got a new product, it's relatively easy to upsell, or do you sort of have to start from scratch? And can you sell to sort of brownfield, or is it all kind of greenfield type selling?
So it's much easier to sell into a new construction project because they've got the budget set aside for it. And big capital projects, they typically don't have a lot of, once they've built the building, they don't have a lot of capital budget laid aside. So it's much easier for us to sell these small consumables consistently over time and have that part of it. But to go in and say, would you like to rebuy your system or half of your system 6 months or 6 years later, it can be challenging. So what we tend to do is in a way, we're trying to refresh our system as inexpensively for our customer and profitably for us as possible. So sort of my vision for it is, and it's not all software, it's a combination of software, hardware, but the idea where you can send the updates like Tesla does, where you're getting added benefits that, wows the customer. And luckily with our software and especially some of our cloud applications, we've been able to do that, where they're really excited and happy about what they have, and they haven't had to buy a whole new system. They've been able to just really get some of the key advantages they want.
Okay, cool. You touched on it a little bit in your presentation, but give us a sense of where you are in competitive landscape. You are a relatively small company based in Victoria. I mean, who are you going up against, and how are you winning business from them?
Yeah, so it's again a combination, sort of fragmented. There's the sort of two biggest players, the 800-pound gorillas, is Philips and Stanley. And so Philips has acquired Lifeline, which is more the home model, but then they also through that got a senior living focused part of their business. We compete against them and been really successful at winning against them. Stanley, again, you think of them as the hammer guys, but they bought a company out of Nebraska, Senior Living Technologies, years ago, and so they carry on, and they're a little on the lower cost side, but not as feature rich. So we can win business against them, and we win the right business. So there's usually the groups that want to work with us because they see the advantages, and other groups that if they're just looking at price, we're not their best choice. So, and then there's a bunch of regional players. There's a bunch of sort of about our size, maybe a bit smaller, maybe a bit bigger, that are sort of trying to be competitive in certain parts of our market. So they might only have a wireless system, or they might only have a hardwired for nursing homes, that kind of thing. So we'll go in, each of my salespeople sees some overlap in who they're selling against, but also has very much a group that no one else would see because they're from the Southeast side.
Okay, cool. Just a reminder, everybody, of course, there's a Q&A chat function there. If you've got any questions that I haven't asked Troy, please let us know. Just fire a question on there. One question had come in as far as you mentioned memory care system, and that there's nobody else really doing that. How does that aid in sort of selling your system? And is there anything proprietary around that sort of will prevent some others from catching up with you?
I think absolutely. I'll be frank. That actually opens the door because people get excited about it. If we come in with just the call system part of our business, it's not as exciting. It's something that it takes a while to explain to people the differences. But when they see the memory care system, that gets them jazzed. That's what they're excited about. And I'll be frank, a lot of times it's not what they end up buying, but that gets the door open, and people like the idea that they could add it later. And it shows people that we're one of the sort of innovative leaders in the space. So it opens doors for us. It's not the biggest selling item. Our biggest selling is that Vitality system I talked about. But it's the flagship product. It's the one people get to know us for and get excited about.
Fantastic. I do want to go back to your board because I think you definitely touched on it. But for those that don't know, Greg Peet and a company called ALI Technologies. That was really a Vancouver, a bit of a wonder kid, or I can't remember what the term is, but a real rock star sort of technology play in Vancouver. And my understanding is Greg is quite a bit of a mentor and a VC or helps fund a lot of technology plays. So he knows this industry quite well. So how did you get somebody like him on board?
Early on, we had a larger board. So we were a company of about 6 people, and we had 8 board of directors, which included some, Discovery Capital on the venture side. But we had Richard Glickman was our chair, who later did the Espriva deal. We had Bill Hunter from Angiotech.
Wow.
Again, we had ended up just the timing was right, and we were able to get a really sort of powerhouse board. Probably a bit overkill in the time, but it helped us during the fundraising. And Greg sort of came in, swept into that. And Greg he's not only, he's a brilliant guy and he's tough, but he also, he knows this business and he's smart, so he gets in. And so I personally work really well with Greg. He's like, being with him is like getting your MBA every time. So I just, suck as much information out as I can. And I think he likes the team. So it's not just me. I think he trusts us. So he's been with us for years, and he's, since then he continues to be a strong supporter of the business.
And you may remember, but I can't remember the exact numbers. He's a significant shareholder. Like he's well over 30%, I think. Is that correct?
Believe so. So the total, because he's got it in both. He's got a fund and then his own.
Right. Yeah.
The total sort of friendlies, and this is good and bad. So what I'll call inside plus, people that are close is almost 70%. So
that's correct. Yeah.
Really closely held.
Yeah. That's what I remember. Correct. Yeah. So you've also got a member of Pender Fund on the board. I've seen their filing, so I understand Pender's a significant shareholder as well.
They are.
So you've got a bit of a who's who of the sort of the local microcap wonder kid. So it's congratulations. I think you've attracted some good shareholders. Yeah. What else can I ask you here? I mean, we're really covering off a lot of good stuff here. You got that. Let me see if there's any other questions. No, there actually isn't any other questions. We love it when we're very efficient. We love it when the CEO comes on and does a good job presenting. But what we always like to do is just have the CEO sort of give us a sense of what investors can look forward to in the next sort of 6 months. And if there's a parting message that you really want to give to our listeners, this is your chance.
Yeah, well, I appreciate this. Appreciate the opportunity. And I will first confess that I cheated. I watched a bunch of your other ones, so I knew what questions you would have possibly asked. If there's one thing to watch for, actually 2 things. Watch for the developments on our RTLS system. You're going to see that over the next 6 to 12 months. We're going to be hopefully talking about that. And then watch our backlog, because it's our business is a little different in that we close business as a booking, but we don't record revenue till the project's complete. So, even if we have a sort of lumpy revenue, it's that backlog that shows that we've sort of got that sort of growth and stability that I think people will care about. So those are the 2 biggest messages. And other than the fact that this is a growing market, and while we sort of all got a little bit of the wind taken out of our sails with the pandemic, I think no more than ever is the need for this professional care for seniors, and the seniors are coming. We are getting older, all of us.
We are, unfortunately we are, Troy, this is awesome. So just a refresh on a couple of things to keep in mind here. Company's about just over 18 million shares outstanding. Market cap of just shy of 5 million. Half of that is in cash. You got a profitable little business here. Great management team, great board of directors that understand the microcap sort of capital markets. And Troy, listen, I want to thank you for hanging out with us today, and we look forward to getting updates. One thing we always ask as well is if someone wants to get a hold of you or your website, what's your website address?
I've just brought it up, but it's www.vigil.com. And I've put my email there too, so tgriffiths@vigil.com, and also phone number. I take calls. So
perfect. Troy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for spending the time.
Good. Trevor, over to you, bud.
Yeah, thanks again, Troy, and looking forward to the future financials and events from the company, and we'll follow up with you again soon.
Thanks very much. Have a good one.
Thanks, Frank.